First, a little review of stencil. A stencil is mainly a piece of material that has a hole in it. Through that hole, you can make an image that has the same shape as the hole over and over again. You can do it with a pencil. You can do it with a stencil brush, dabbing ink or paint through. You can use a spray can or an airbrush to spray things at the hole, leaving the shape of the hole. Or you can squeegee through ink across it like you do in a silkscreen. Each one of these gives you the same shape over and over again. Now when you're doing stencils, it's important to remember that stencils have different parts and they tend to fall off or get misaligned. Now in stencils that are not adhered to a screen, it's always good to have little bridges. These bridges hold the pieces in place so you don't lose them, and they're in the right location when you print or trace around each time. Now the trick in making a stencil is to take some design or picture and then put in the bridges, and to do so in such a way that it holds all the pieces in place but doesn't detract from the picture itself and possibly enhances it. Another way to put the bridges in is to break down the image into related shapes, shapes that make up the same picture. Here you see a picture of a seahorse, and here we've taken it and put it into related shapes, so it still looks like a seahorse, but there are little bridges around every piece, a webbing that holds all the pieces together and holds all the holes in the correct position. Now for our project, we're going to make a pattern, and our stencil is going to be our motif, and the repeated stencil print becomes the pattern. Now to do this, we need a scaffolding or some kind of structure that will link one print with the next, making the regular repeat. The structure of this repeat is going to be dictated by these lines. Now in your design, you're going to have these three lines on this side and these three lines on the other. That's so that as you print it, and then you print it again, these lines here and here line up with the new lines on the left or right of them. Here's an example of the motif we're going to use. It's our little seahorse. And if we take this seahorse and we print it, then we move it over one and print it again, and print it again, we end up with something like this, a continuous band of motifs, one flowing into the next. Now how can you use these different lines? Well, let's look at some characteristics they can have. They come in, three on one side, three on the other. All they have to be is the same right at the edge of the motif in the stencil. They can change anytime. As they come in here, they can change size. They can go under other pieces. They can go over. They can wiggle. They can turn. They can get fat. They can have holes. Now when you show one being on top of another, we use the perspective principle of overlap and also related shapes. This piece as it comes in is broken because it's hidden by this one, but there's a bridge between the two. But this piece stops on the same curve as the curve next to it, a related angle. Same here, and same on these. Now at the bottom, we have the word art. And the lines that go into it become a related shape next to this part of the A, or flow into the T, or sometimes we related shapes placed between things to fill negative space and make it more interesting. All these different things can be manipulated in any one design. You have to decide what works best for you. As always, the first thing is to plan. Now, I've given you an ideation sheet. This means there are 4 setups, which you can try different things to see which one works best or which one you want to carry through to be your final project. Now, you may use a couple of them. You may use all 4. That's up to you. But the first thing you want to do is to try and make a design that you want. In other words, pick something you want to be in your motif. Don't worry about the lines. Don't worry about the stencil. That's 3 steps away. Here's the best way to go about it. In red, you see I've written the letter A. Let's say I want the initial A for some reason. Okay? Then, after I've written the letter A, I know I have to represent these lines somehow with these flowing lines that are going through the motif. Well, I take this one, and I start a rough sketch and saying, okay, this one could come up, and then it could come down here and flow out and go out this side. Notice I have this one not going out here, but it goes out here. That's fine. They don't have to flow together, and they can end and not touch each other at all. Then I've decided how I'm going to show the top part here and the crossover there. Once I've decided how I'm going to have these lines flow or work within the object or the design, I then come back and I say, okay, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to need some breaks. So I'll need a break there, which makes this look like it's on top of this. And I can start getting a rough idea of how I'm going to do my stencil. Those are the 3 basic steps. First, figure out what you want in your motif, what's the subject. Then figure out how you're going to fit that motif into the structure, the scaffolding or grid. And last, you figure out how to make it a stencil. Now let's look at one all the way through to completion. Here on a full-size one, and this will become the stencil, I have marked my image. Okay, it's going to be a teddy bear. Then I made sure that it was a stencil, and I had all the breaks I needed. Notice I didn't use this part of the line. I only used the line right at the edge where they're going to link. Then I cut out all the pieces and turned it into a stencil for printing. Here it is, all cut out, and I've already used it for one print. Let's see how I printed it. Placing it on a sheet of paper, so that this side is halfway across the sheet, I spray with green ink or paint. Now I've got the 2 colors so you can see it easily. Then once I've done that, I pick up the stencil carefully, always best to hold one side, pick up the other, and I move the paper over and I position it so these lines touch the lines from the last print. And then I would print it again. And what I end up with is the double print of the little bear, one flowing into the next, flowing into the next. This could be continued on as long as you'd like. Now let's look at some other designs done from the same technique. You will see a variety of geometric and organic shapes and motifs of different subject matter. Hopefully these will give you some ideas for things you want to do.